Look what you did, you little jerk.
What's going on, Jerk Faces? Welcome to another brand new episode of the Circle of Jerks podcast. I'm here with our faithful Andy. What's going on, Andy?
Hey.
And we got a new guest today, my friend Kevin. He is a jack of all trades in a lot of ways. He loves anything in the culinary arts. He's an escape room reviewer, board game and video game enthusiast, and overall awesome guy. Wow. Say hi to everyone, Kevin.
Praise. Hello, I'm Kevin. Some lofty expectations that you put on me there.
Well, hey, that's how I feel about you, Kevin. You're awesome. You're an awesome dude, and I was really excited to have you come on. And I think some of the things that you are interested in, we haven't really talked about necessarily on this podcast, and I can't really think of anyone else that does things that you do. So
yeah, I don't know. I think I got hooked on a lot of things, not necessarily because I'm interested in them, but because the people around me were so interested in what they.
So you weren't okay. So it'd be safe to say that you were, you got into these. You weren't naturally drawn to these. You were exposed to them, and you're like, oh, these are pretty cool, and then went from there. But it wasn't because of your initial curiosity or your own kind of seeking out of these things.
Yeah, I think I got dragged. Not even necessarily dragged. It was like I had.
That's a nice way of putting it.
I had friends and students who wanted to embark on these new, for example, in terms of baking, these new culinary adventures. Mm-hmm. So I had one.
Did you bring the mic a little bit closer to you?
I had one student who was like, "Oh, I want to try this food, this food, this food, and this food." I was like, I know a market nearby that sells all these foods. I have no idea what they are, but let's try them. Mm-hmm. So I went to the market, and for example, one of the first things that I remember ever having was a jackfruit. One of those giant,
it kind of looks like a durian.
Yeah, with less spiky. Though. But it actually tastes and smells good, like the durian. Right. So we sliced it open, we made a pretty big deal out of it. Mm-hmm. But I think that was the first time where I was like, oh, this food, experiencing new foods, cultures, all that jazz can bring people together.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I think we all know this, right? The best. Well, I still remember a conversation that I had with a friend a very long time ago who was like, Kevin, I think one of the reasons why we have one mouth while we eat is because when one person eats, he or she can't talk. So that person is forced to listen. So that's the reason why we have meals together, so that one person can eat and the other person can actively listen without interrupting. And so
that's a pretty cool observation.
Yeah. So I really took that to heart, and ever since then, just been. I have parties at my house. I used to have them a lot more regularly, but nowadays it's more maybe once every couple of months, especially when my friends come back from college. Mm-hmm. That's around the time where it's all right, let's have parties, right? Mm-hmm. But I think one of the most memorable ones besides the jackfruit was when I discovered that there was a spice shop near where I lived, and so I went to the spice shop. I bought a bunch of spices, and I was like, I'm gonna grind this up and we're gonna make fried chicken. So yeah, we had a day where I think it was 11 or 12 people came over, had the spice that has this amazingly spiced chicken. I don't even remember what went into it, honestly. I just remember there was mace and Szechuan peppercorns, which they just sounded really exotic.
Oh wow.
So there's actually a spice called mace?
Yes, it is the outer covering of the nutmeg.
Oh.
So it has a different flavor, but it has I think it has a stronger flavor than just
so it's not the actual nutmeg. Yes. It's the protective coating around the nutmeg that you have to crack open.
I'm always fascinated by how people figured out that it's hey, this is something that we can use to flavor food.
What comes to mind is that Calvin and Hobbes comic where I don't remember exactly what happened, but Calvin was saying something who was the first person who looked at a cow udder and was like, yeah, I'm gonna drink the first thing that comes out of this thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And like obviously we know. Remember, like Calvin's like 6 years old, right?
Yeah,
and we
yeah.
know like, oh yeah, it's breast milk basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I just remember like Hobbs walking away and being like, I don't think we should talk about these kinds of things at 6 in the morning.
But I mean, if you think about it, the first person to apply heat or fire to meat or something was the first chef.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
it's just
so-
like, and it's like, so what, what was, and you kind of wonder like what the genesis of that was. It's like how did they even think to do that? Was it just because like there's a forest fire and there was like some animal that a rabbit that was caught in the flame and then like they ate the burned or the seared flesh and it was pretty good. It's like, oh, this is pretty good. So then what was the spark of inspiration, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know but I do know that like fire, cooking, heat, even like cold, these things transform things, right? And like that's why just these days, especially, like I like the culinary world has always been like full. Like, even back in like the Victorian era, like they were making spectacles out of food, but back then the more
right, I kind of immediately think of the pig with the apple in its mouth. How's that? That's very theatrical,
right? And but keep in mind that the norm back then was you eat to survive. But nowadays, especially here in America, like the norm is more like, oh, we get to take pictures of our food and like
right. It's a form of entertainment.
Art.
It's a form of entertainment.
It's art. It's entertainment. It's a science,
right.
And it's science and art kind of all wrapped. It's all that wrapped into one thing, which you could say is like kind of decadent in a lot of ways, but it's still like
for sure it is.
I mean, they do call it culinary arts for a reason. But yeah, I still think that it's great because I love, and I'm a very eclectic guy. Like I can eat at like one of the kind of lower class like cheap restaurants, but I also like like the high end type of stuff as well. I'm at home in both places.
Yeah, but I think just one. I still remember back in college, a lot of when I was a senior, and I had a lot of people from my church who were freshmen, and they're like, "Kevin, you're like a low key hipster," and I was like,
"I definitely see that."
I was like, I never would have been thought about myself that way, but it's kind of true.
It's funny, but that's become like kind of like a pejorative.
Yeah.
Before it was like kind of like this innocuous kind of thing, but then I think that, it's because like they started taking on like this snooty kind of elitist attitude, which then made everyone hate them.
Right. But that's the thing I think about just the hipster culture is that like they're not afraid to try new things, right? And like especially if it gets likes on Instagram. Right. But I mean, I think part of the reason why I'm not as outgoing in terms of like I do cook and I do come up with my own recipes. For example, there's a recipe that I'm working on right now, ube cinnamon rolls. So basically cinnamon rolls, but there is purple sweet potato from Philippines.
Ube is a purple sweet potato indigenous to the Philippines.
We're putting a picture up like right somewhere right around here.
Future me will put it like right here, right now.
Yeah.
But we're just working that into the dough and making basically a super brilliant purple cinnamon roll that has like that very distinct nutty kind of flavor from ube. So like that's my thing, right? That's my jam, is that like I love developing new recipes. But I just don't like, I don't know, part of the culture about like, making food look presentable is starting to destroy kind of like what food is supposed to be about, which is it's supposed to be delicious.
It's supposed to be, it's supposed to taste good. It's supposed to be nourishing. But yeah, there has been but there has been this, I don't want to use such a harsh word, but almost a perversion of food and food culture. Because now it's like because we when we had Devin on and he was talking about our buddy his mom owns like this bar restaurant place, and he was telling us how much more expensive the food cost is, just because you have to get it pretty for Instagram and stuff, and you have to have Instagrammable food, and so the kind of artificial inflation. Or no, the artificial inflation of the Instagram culture has negatively impacted the actual food cost of restaurants and trying the kind of keeping up with the Joneses as it were.
Right, where I think they've kind of gone away. Not now at this particular place, Pineapple Hill, one of our favorite places to go. The food there is amazing. It's really good.
It is, yeah, it is good.
But it's kind of where you're more focused on how it looks more than how it tastes, which is kind of, it's, to me, I'm more about I want it to taste good. It might not always look super presentable, but my person is I just want to eat it. It's gonna go in here, so
it's gonna come out brown. It's gonna come out brown. So does it matter if it looks pretty? I mean. There's that old saying, you eat with your eyes first, and to a degree that's true, because you're not gonna look at a bowl of gray slop and be even though it might be the most amazing thing in the world, just initially looks wise it doesn't look appealing.
Right.
There's there's a great Futurama episode with do you remember? With there's a character on there who's a robot, Bender. I actually have a figure of Bender over there, but he wants to become a famous chef, but he's a robot, so he has no taste buds. So he ends up getting searching around, he finds this person to help train him, and because all of the food he makes is terrible. But he gets this magic elixir that he pours on his slop that he makes, and it's oh man, this is the greatest thing ever. Right. It turns out it's MSG. But
MSG doesn't make things LSD.
I think it was MSG. It was maybe it was LSD. I could be remembering it wrong, but yeah, it's just
because I remember because it was this huge. It wasn't MSG. It was because people were going really they were almost deranged in their description of this, this gray looking slop.
It could have been LSD.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was.
I had to watch that episode again, but that's kind of
yeah, and they do this Iron Chef kind of style thing where Bender goes on and he competes against this really well known celebrity chef
Elzar,
yeah, the Neptunian.
Yeah, well, Elzar is a parody off of
Emerald,
yeah.
Bam.
It's put a little sock into it, bam.
Yeah, grab your Spice Weasel and blam.
Yeah, but I guess just nowadays it's you brought up how we eat with our eyes, but has it come to a point where we only eat with our eyes? I think nowadays the businesses that are actually succeeding the most aren't necessarily the businesses that taste the best. It's the businesses that come up with the new things,
right?
Things that no one has seen before that are beautiful.
Right. I think I don't know if it was Patience, at least in terms of contemporary food culture, but I think one of the first ones was the cronut.
Yeah.
The cronut, everyone was putting up on their social media. It's oh my god, I can't believe they made a croissant donut thing. It's this huge fad, and all these other boutique donut shops started doing it, and I think that I think at least in terms of contemporary food culture, that's what started it off.
Yep. Well, and I'll cite an example when we hung out to eat. It's a tale of two taco shops in my opinion. So there was one that we went to, and I'm drawing a blank on the names right now, where it wasn't necessarily fancy. It's kind of a hole in the wall place. They make their own tortillas. Their carnitas are
Cinco Puntos.
Oh
yes. See, I
love carnitas.
Yeah, Cinco Puntos was really good. But you wouldn't think it's anything special because it's in the middle of nowhere, kind of in next to some some other it's a dump. Let's be honest, where it's located it's a shithole.
Yeah.
But the food is fantastic.
Yeah.
It's great. On the other hand, another place that's a little bit fancier, kind of more hipstery, but it's focused on the look and kind of this. we got to do things. We got to change it up. We got to just do something different. And it wasn't bad. It was good. Like and it was the other taco place where it kind of yeah, exactly. Now, see, for me personally, at Cinco Puntos, that's because the flavor. That's the only thing I care about. I want good food. I preferred that over this place just because I felt like they were trying too hard. It's like it's a simple food. Like you don't have to like reinvent the wheel. Yeah. I don't mind like trying new things, doing fusion and like, trying to like, let's see what we can do different. Like let's see if we can merge certain flavor profiles and see if it works. And it's an experiment in a lot of ways. But I felt like it was kind of more of that, we're going to be the Instagram, we're going to do things different. We're going to shake it up and we're going to be cool. Yeah. And I felt like they were trying too hard. It's like, but that place is very popular. Yeah. So I get it. It is a little bit of the art, but I'm kind of like, it bothers me because like we're missing out on like what the important thing is. It's like it's the flavor. That's what's important. Yeah.
Yeah. Man, Cinco Puntos is my favorite. Like there's like just this little like little Mexican abuelitas just like in the back, just like forming every tortilla in my hand and slapping it on the griddle, and then like it's like a family run operation. But man, it's like I've taken so many people there. I also remember taking you once on a Wednesday and it was closed and you were so sad.
I was gonna cry. Literally, I was like, this is awful.
Where is this place located?
It's in Boyle Heights.
Boyle Heights.
Yeah, and it's funny because these places are actually very close to each other within like a couple of blocks. And Cinco Puntos is.
Wait, the other place you mentioned was
Guisados? It's called Guisados.
Guisados, yeah.
Very popular joint. They have a few branches in like Burbank, and I believe there's one in Hollywood. There's one
West Hollywood.
Dodger Stadium.
It's funny because I've always wanted to go there, but I don't know, for some reason I never carved out time in my schedule or whatever to go try it.
I think it is worth it, especially because the sampler platter, you get to try.
Right, that's right. That's what I heard about the sampler platter. You get to try like all of like the.
It's I would say it's definitely worth going. I'll go again. Like and I'm kind of shitting on it right now, but it's like it's a really good place. It's really good. I just felt like they were trying too hard.
I mean, it is a pretty traditional. It's not traditional in the sense that we understand tacos, but guisados means stewed, so like it's a very traditional preparation, just jazzed up to look pretty. So I do understand in that sense, especially like I think these days guisados is probably like the most like popular Instagrammable, Snapchatable.
Right. And you can tell that's what they were going for.
Right. And that's the thing, right? Like I don't think like Fame has done pretty good things for guisados, but at the same time I do agree that they jazzed it up for the aesthetic as opposed to some place like Cinco Puntos or like there's another very famous taco stand called Avenue 26.
Yep.
Dollar tacos, right?
Oh yeah.
At like like 9-10 in the morning. And one of the best things about the food culture is not like the fact that you take these pictures. It's impossible to take pictures at 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
Right? Like you get like these grainy pictures and it's like, is that a carnita or a carne asada?
It's
right?
all about
and they have to use flash. That just destroys it.
But like it's
but yeah, like the small kind of underground spots, like there was a bar near my school that had a happy hour and they had dollar tacos, and they had like one of the best carnitas I've ever had in my life. And so when if I was working late or I was working past like 3 o'clock, I'd always like say I'm gonna go take a break. I go across the street and I go get me like 5 tacos and a beer all for about like $10. And it was the best thing ever. And it wasn't in the bar was called Cinco's in Westchester. Yeah, Westchester, that's where my school is. But yeah, it's like one of the best like carnitas like I ever had. And so
but yeah, like that's the thing about just food culture, is I love how it brings people together more than anything else. Is just like for example, going back to the Avenue 26 tacos, right? The beautiful thing about food isn't that you're showing everybody else on social media what you're eating. It's that you're outside, it's at night, everyone's like probably partially tipsy, and like you're just like it's just like it seems like a dump, but like you're just enjoying it with friends, right? And another one of my favorite things to do is just Korean barbecue, right? Like we've been to a lot of Korean barbecue, but like I have one joint called Mansu, which you've been to with me, but like I always go there and I have so many memories there, right? Like just cooking meat over an open fire, but at the same time, just like I remember one time where here's the thing, right? I don't even remember what she said, but I was with two of my friends, and one of my friends said something so dumb that we stared at her for like 15 seconds, and like you could see on her face just like this look of like, why did I say that? And then after that, we laughed for about 5 minutes, right? And that's the thing, right? It's not even about what she said. It was just the fact that that memory is there. And I don't have enough fingers to count how many like memories I have just cooking meat over an open fire while like everybody else is just like talking.
Right.
And so I think that's what's really formed my opinion of food is a lot of people have asked me like, Kevin, like you have so many recipes, you've made so many things for us, and these are some of the best iterations of this particular food that we've had. Why don't you open a restaurant? And I think for me, but the reason for me is like it takes the heart out of it.
Yeah.
Right? Like I don't just cook because the food is good. I cook because somebody is in mind. Right? So for example, same friend who just said like that really dumb thing at the Korean barbecue restaurant, she was like, Kevin, like, can you make banana cream pie? I was like, I have no idea what that is, but I'll look it up and I'll make it, right? And since then, like I've been working on a banana cream pie recipe, starting from like something that I just found on the internet into something that I actually posted on Reddit, which was it was a white chocolate banana cream pie with a rye crust.
Yeah,
totally different, and a marshmallow cream, like a marshmallow whipped cream on top.
Right.
Yeah, right. Like I don't cook. Obviously I posted it on social media, but I don't cook because like I want the recognition. I cook because like there are people that I'm cooking for, and I feel like if I open a restaurant, that sense of like I'm cooking for you, that sense would be lost. And I understand that's kind of like a personal thing for me. I know that like with other people they might not necessarily have that problem, but I think just at the stage that I'm at right now, this works for me, right? Like just being able to cook on a small scale for the people that are precious to me, because that's just how I grew up with food. Being able to cook for every like my house is open door. But when you come in, I will look at you. I will ask what you like. I will ask what you're allergic to. I will ask, like all these things, and I will make something for you. And I think just opening up a restaurant, like it feels kind of cold and robotic. And again, I think I have to work that out and see if there's a way to do that better. But like I guess just at this time.
Yeah, that business model is really hard. Like, I mean,
the restaurant industry is hard to begin with because I forget the percentage, but it's more than half of all restaurants that end up closing their doors within a year. One reason just being undercapitalization. But sometimes it's hard to find a niche for your food. But it's interesting that you say that it's hard for you. It would be hard for you to create food like in mass, but you're more comfortable doing it on the personal basis. But it's like there's no way of like kind of transferring that. It's like it's still a personal basis. It's just on a larger scale.
I guess that's kind of true, but yeah, I don't know. Like again, like I've been thinking about this for a while, and at the moment, my concerns are elsewhere, right? Who knows, right? Like once I finish school, I might actually like go down that road and down that endeavor when I have the time, when I have the resources to try it. But just at this moment, it's like how much time and energy can I pour into this endeavor?
Yeah,
and
that makes a lot of sense because
it's your life at that point. Once it becomes that business, that's your life,
right? I think for me, cooking and baking really is like it's an escape in a way. It's a way out.
Well, because a friend of mine at my church, he's an electrical engineer, but he also loves food. He cooks all the time for us. And he, just recently started to do meal preps, and then, few people, started to join in, and he, only asked for like, a certain amount of money, but then also for them to help out, and he does all the meal preps at church. And I just went to him and was like, hey, dude, what, you're getting all these people to, kind of pitch in, and like, it's kind of growing. Why don't you, you should just, maybe you should do a side, like a side hustle and do like meal preps. And he said like, no, I can't. It's just like, cause there's no way to really scale up. And then plus also like the price point. Cause I think is only charging like $20 for like 4 days of food.
Wow.
But he's making really like quality food, like a protein and, vegetable and some kind of starch. And they're like quality meals, like stuff that a professional like nutritionist or another kind of a company that does like meal preps they would create. But yeah, he just like I can't do it. I can't do it for the price point. I have to like scale up.
Yeah.
And then he's busy with work, and so it's like understandable.
Yeah, the scale thing definitely has also I've thought about that as well, but. Yeah, again, I'm content with where it is right now. Later on, who knows if it'll become something bigger. I might ask my friends, might ask my family to like, hey, like I want to try this. But yeah, like I actually never thought about like the fact that most businesses do go under in a year. I've never heard that statistic, but then I do know that like there's a lot of restaurants in my area that like cycle in and out. And, like,
yeah,
on and off.
exactly.
Well, it's not even like just like kind of the. Even like some of the celebrity chefs and stuff like who are really great cooks, but like even their restaurants go under. Like sometimes it just doesn't work, or the location's wrong, or there's any number of reasons why it just doesn't work.
Yeah. So we'll see where life heads. But food,
that's pretty cool that you experiment with food. I actually last episode I did reveal that I've been working on this one burger for like 3 years in my mind. And it's based on Korean barbecue, interestingly enough. So I think I might try and actually create this thing, maybe even for my birthday.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Like you said 3 years, and I'm actually thinking about it, like my typical chocolate chip cookie recipe that actually took about like 2-3 years to really like just like constantly like not just like the chocolate chip, like the basic chocolate chip, but coming up with like variations too, right? Like there was another one. I made one with hazelnut butter, so I made hazelnut butter and incorporated that into the dough. I made one where I tempered dark chocolate and white chocolate, dark chocolate and milk chocolate together to make the chocolate chips to make like a dark milk chocolate. But that's the thing, right? Like every single time I try those and I give it to somebody, I was like, "Hey, you want to try this?" And like I have a lot of test subjects, which helps, right? It's been 3 years and just like cycling chocolate chip cookies in and out, and like I always come back to like the basic chocolate chip cookie, because sometimes it's like, oh yeah, you want like a hazelnut rye dark milk chocolate chip cookie, but sometimes you just want a chocolate chip cookie.
That's I get that way sometimes.
So it's like what is it, Ron Swanson from Parks and Recs, where they had like the burger challenge.
Meat.
It's like meat, cheese, fire.
The simplicity of it definitely plays up a lot. So I'm thankful that I have a lot of test subjects. So even for you, right? Like just if you have that recipe in mind, like sometimes you just gotta go for it.
Right. I know. There's a certain point, like there's only so much I could think about and like tweak and work and trying to figure out like all like the little hiccups that it might come up, but just like until I make it, it's like I won't know for sure.
Exactly. Yeah. There was a period where I was actually I'm actually past this stage now. Like for some reason, my stomach, like I guess, healed. I don't know exactly what happened, but like there was a stage where I couldn't have dairy and I couldn't have gluten. Ooh. So like my stomach was like always upset, and so like that was the thing though, is that like I still loved to bake and I still loved to cook. So I would always be inviting people over to be like, hey, I can't taste this for myself. Can you try this?
Torture.
And so it's really funny because nowadays, like I can handle these things, right? But like that's my thing, is that like I don't remember how my recipes were before. So I'm like trying these cookies. I'm like, yeah, these are pretty good. And my friends are like, dude, like your cookies got way better over the past 3 years. And I'm just like, I have no frame of reference for that. So I think cooking and baking has taken me on like a journey, and just like my whole mentality towards food, my relationship with food as well. I used to have an eating disorder, and so like it took a while to just like heal my own mentality, heal my body as well, just from being unable to eat certain things. But man, like I think food, like I talk about food being so good for the culture and how food can connect people, but I also understand how what food has done for me personally. Just having a healthy relationship with the food that I eat, like Robert knows, right? Like just how much I take care of my body, like those giant freaking protein shakes that I drink. Like I put so much effort into that. And so I think that's another dimension, right? Is I know we weren't necessarily going to talk about working out.
No, hey, no. It's where the conversation leads, so go for it, man.
But that's another one of like the things that I love to do. And I have a gym at home. So a lot of my friends are like, hey, like, come over, can I come over so you can train me and like work on my diet and work on all this stuff. And like that's another dimension of like when I cook for people, it's like how like you said, right, like there's one person who was doing meal prep with like a starch, a vegetable, and a protein. That's like always in the back of my mind when I do cook for people. It's like, hey, sometimes you want like an ice cream cookie sandwich, right? But sometimes like you want something like that's like light and healthy and something. I think
a treat is a treat, you know, for every once in a while, but you need a solid base.
Yeah. So like I think my cooking just like, again, this goes back to like the whole like I'm cooking for people, right? And man, like I think that if I didn't have that sort of relationship with food and with people, like I would definitely have gone. Like I've talked to my mom about this before, right? Like I want to go into culinary stuff, and she's like, "Oh, I'll think about it," right? Yeah. But like I'm glad that she balked at that for a while.
I think too, like you know, in a lot of things with that, like maybe if you went down that road and kind of made that like this is what I want to do, I think you may lose a little bit. Because there's those things where like we're interested in them, we like them, but once it becomes like, you know, the career focus, I think we lose interest.
Yeah,
I know like there's a few things where, there's things I'm interested in, but I think if I made that like my career goal, I might not like it as much.
Yeah,
it's more. I like to dabble. I like aspects of it. But I don't want that to be my job.
Yeah.
And I think that would be for you with culinary stuff, because for you it's not necessarily about the food, it's about the relationships. And when you make that your career, like the relationship kind of goes out. The part that you care about the most about it, about enjoying a meal with somebody, having a conversation with somebody during that meal, and kind of catering to them, on a one-on-one basis. Well, that's gone. And I think that would be like you would lose that passion, that love that you have for it.
Yeah. I think, vocation is definitely supposed to be like purposeful, right? And everything else is in service of that purpose. Whether like for example, for me, being exercise, baking, all this jazz, like these things take my mind off of like, I'm constantly working, but we have to remember that there's joy to be found in this life.
Right.
There's other things that matter as well, and those things are in service of, like, for example, I work with kids, right? And sometimes it's like, like my baking does help me working with kids, but at other times it's like, hey, like I just need to like take a step back from doing this and like refresh my mind, refresh my body, and like that's why I go to exercise. That's why like I invite people over and have parties, like because ultimately like there is that purpose of like, hey, like I work with these kids, but I need my break too. I need my me time as well. But there's also a way for me to incorporate the things that I love into like being with these kids and making sure that they are hale and hearty.
Right.
Yeah. So that's also always in the back of my mind, is like how do I properly live all of my life in a way that is in service of other people, right? Like we were going to talk about escape rooms, and like that's just my jam, right? Like
Oh man, yeah.
I remember taking Robert on his first escape room, and it was hilarious because it was like a horror themed. Were we chained to a wall?
Yeah, we
Was it
started
during
out
Halloween?
Yeah, so because we did it for my birthday, so we did it for my birthday, so it was definitely Halloween themed. So I when I met Kevin, like he had been talking about like escape rooms and all that stuff. It's like, and I like puzzles, and so obviously like that's like puzzle, for puzzle fanatics, like escape room, yeah, exactly, and. So the one that he takes me on, of course, it's a horror thing. It's like, great, but yeah, we started off like we're chained to a like we were captured by like some sort of like serial killer or something like that, and so we were
Saw.
Yeah, it's kind of like
in
that.
the bathroom, yeah.
And so we started off chained to the wall, so we had to figure out how to escape from that and move on to the next room, and then find certain clues. And of course, like if you, because you have a time limit, right?
Yeah.
And when at certain intervals, like they would give you like hints, or I think we can call for hints too at certain points if we wanted that.
Well, the one I went to, like, there was like a TV screen, and like the person would like put up like messages, like it's like, oh, try this, or like it's like maybe look at it again, that kind of thing.
So the one that we did, the first one that we did, was hilarious because the way that he was giving hints was, or the way that they gave hints was,
fucking scared the shit out of me.
There was a clown with like 3 faces on it. Like there's like a face, kind of like one of those like kind of like Japanese, I guess, like triple face mask things.
Yeah.
There's like a face on each side, and like it's like a terrifying face too.
Yeah.
Like the clown's pretty like bloodied up and stuff like that.
I felt like I jumped like 10 feet in the air.
He walks in and has a sign saying like, "Oh, this is how much time do you have? Do you want a hint?" Right, like with this. So you have 45 minutes left. Do you want a hint? And he walks in at regular intervals. But the first time he walks in, we're both facing a chest. And Robert's looking straight at it. I'm kind of like scanning the room, and then the clown entity monster beast thing walks in and just stands in the doorway that we just came out of. And like I see the movement, and I'm like, but I don't say anything, right? This guy is still staring at the chest. So he turns around, jumps 10 feet, like literally jumps 10 feet in the air, and like clings to me like a woman. And he cusses out loud, super loud, like F, and I'm like, welcome to your first escape room, Robert. And like it's funny because I feel like the only ones that we've done 2, right, together.
We've done 2
you
together,
and me,
yeah.
right? Both of them were horror themed, and like that's the thing, right? Like the horror themes usually make the best escape rooms because like there's more urgency to get out.
Right, yeah. There's a little bit more atmosphere and a little bit more foreboding.
Yeah, I think the best ones.
I kind of want to try one that's not horror themed.
That takes the pressure off. There's only been like I don't have.
The second one we did though was like a Dracula themed one. That one was cool. I really liked that one a lot.
But you still screamed. I do remember you still screamed. There was a statue up there. There was a statue on the wall, and when we solved the puzzle, it cackled and its eyes lit up. And you did that same thing when you saw the clown. You jumped, you screamed, yelled an
like a woman,
and clung to me. I was
like a woman.
Get off. But like, yeah, that's the thing, right? Like,
I want one that's not horror themed for once.
But I like watching the screen. You see, I like going to escape rooms for my entertainment, and I never tell people what they're getting into. There are non-scary ones, but they're not. One of my favorites is called Evil Genius, and unfortunately, I know the owner, and I think there was like some unforeseen. He's posted this on Facebook saying like there's some unforeseen circumstances, and so he had to shut down like immediately, which sucks because it was one of my favorite escape rooms. And I don't want to spoil it for anybody listening, just in case you might be going in the next couple of weeks as they close down. But at the end. There's not a horror themed escape room, but something happens at the end that makes you panic, and suddenly like you forget how to put a key into a keyhole, right? Wow. Like suddenly like the keyhole gets like this small and the key's like this big, and you're like, right? Like that sense of urgency is so difficult to do in non-horror escape rooms. But yeah, and that's why I do like. I have a group that I do a lot of escape rooms with, and like this group has eventually they've become my best and closest friends. And we just bonded over over doing so many escape rooms, and a lot of them are horror themed. And that's the thing. Like I'm actually not that great with horror, right? But just like that sense of like I don't know exactly what the psychological term for it is, but like just being in a traumatic situation together. Right. Like brings people closer
it's like people, it's like soldiers in warfare where they're they're all in the stuck together, and there's a sense of alleviation because everyone's going through it together.
Right. It's like struggle buddies.
Yeah,
that was the term. That's the term.
It's funny because it's kind of adorable.
Yeah, but
the adventures of the struggle buddies.
But just in the situation, man, like. Oh man, I remember another escape room where horror themed, pitch black dark, don't see anything going on.
Nice.
And here's the thing is that my friends are also huge scaredy cats like me, but but my mentality is always we have to get out. Like that is first and foremost. I don't care what's in my way. I will punch something if it gets in my way.
Yeah,
right?
You're like a bull in a china shop. Like, we're getting out of this place.
Yeah. So there's this one escape room where literally there's a dude chasing after you. Well, I don't know. Okay,
you told me this story.
But there's a dude chasing after you with an axe.
Okay.
So we're in this room and we solve a puzzle and we're getting out of that room back to the hallway. So a key comes. We find a key. We get out of that room and we're back in the hallway. We have to go back to the hallway and try like 3 or 4 doors. Me being the kind of person that's like I'm kind of by default among this group of friends of mine. Like I'm usually that guy that goes first, because if you go first, that means you experience whatever happens first. Right. So if there's something on the other side of the door that jumps out at you, I get punished.
Right.
But what's hilarious about this room is that it kind of flips that archetype on its head. So we're in this tiny little room where it seems like there's nothing that's going to happen to us, right? But the moment I leave the room, a secret wall opens up in the room that we were just in. So I have no idea what's going on behind me, right? But I have the key. I'm just trying the different keyholes, and I just hear screaming going on behind me. And I'm like, oh God, we're going to die. We need to get out. So like I'm like again like I go through that keyhole thing where I'm like I don't know how to operate keys anymore, but like eventually like I pop it open. I pop the door open, and like a bunch of other things happened in that room. But I just remember being so panicked that I was always the first person in whatever next room or whatever next puzzle that we had to do. And my friends are all talking about this room being like the scariest, most incredibly epic escape room that they've ever been to. I'm like, dude, all they did was put keys into cold doors. I don't know what was going on.
Yeah, because you missed all the horror.
Yeah, I remember. I do remember there was this one point where I went into a room. And again, I have no idea that this happened, but so there's a chute that you have to go through to get into another room. You have to crawl through it. I go in first, and then the next guy starts coming up behind me. But then as he is coming behind me, the door in the previous room where we were all in opens, and the dude comes in with the axe. There were 2 girls and three guys in that room. One of the girls panics super hard, shoves the guy through the chute, and so he shoots out of the chute on the other side. There's another guy who's crawling after the second guy. I'm already in the other room. There's another guy that's crawling after the second guy. She basically slams him against the side of the chute and just shoots through the chute.
That's awesome.
And so basically she injured 2 people trying to escape from this dude with an axe. Nice. And all I remember is being in the other room. I hear a thump behind me. I look around and there's a dude on the face down on the floor like a cartoon. And I was like, and so, but that's the thing again, like for me it's always been about just like the bonding, like just going back to the food thing, right? Like it's always been about like the experience and how that brings people together. And I think with escape room, like there's a mentality these days among a lot of escape room enthusiasts that's like, oh, like I will only go with the people that I trust the most. And there's a part of me that agrees with that sentiment, right? Like just because we've done escape rooms just you and I together. And
I'd like to do with like you, me, and like some more people too. Like at one point,
but but like just in today's culture is just like I don't want to trust anybody, right? I know some of my friends do escape rooms by themselves, because they don't trust other people to to mess up, right? But I think for me, it goes beyond. Like again, I have a group of friends that I do these escape rooms very regularly with, and like I trust these people with my life at this point, right? I think there is a tendency, especially when I go with, because I've gone with some of my students before, and there's a tendency for them to like, if one person fails at a puzzle, the next person immediately grabs it out of their hand and they're like, I want to try it. Right. And there's no trust. There's no camaraderie there.
It's funny that you bring this up because I guess my first and only escape room experience was with a bunch of people from my church. And we were we went to the escape room and we were able to solve all the puzzles and everything within like an hour. And the surprising thing was the worker afterwards like, wow, I'm like really impressed by you guys. Like, oh, why is that? It's like, yeah, because like other groups that come by, like they're like either yelling at each other and calling each other stupid, and it's like come on, Frank, hurry up. It's like, shut up, Karen, And then she was like genuinely surprised, like, man, you guys work really well together. And so I think that was pretty interesting that you were describing your own experiences with your students and how like there's the teamwork wasn't there.
Right, which is why I understand like why some people are like, yeah, I'm only going to go with my husband, or I'm only going to go with my wife. Right. Like I'm only going to go with the people or the person that I trust because I know this person thinks like I do. Right. But that's the thing, right? Like you only trust one person, but what if you had not just one person who thought like you do, but you had like 4 or 5 of them, right? And that's just kind of like the camaraderie that I formed with these people just like building it up over the course of like 40, 50 escape rooms. And like we've gotten to a point where it's like, oh, you're doing that? I'm going to go over here and do this because I know that you're able to do that, right? And we've also gotten to a point where you almost know how each other think. Right. So, for example, there's one guy that he's amazing at finding things. Right. Like he just has a knack for being like, that looks like a place where something would be. I'm going to go stick my hand in it. But like that, we've all kind of like absorbed that from him. And nowadays it's like, right. Like, how there's the garbage disposal in the sink, right? There's a few escape rooms, spoilers. There's a few escape rooms out there that like they make you stick your hand in there, and the moment you do, it goes off. Right? Well, not
the sound.
Yeah. Like it's gonna grind your hand, right? But like the first time we did that, we were like, oh God, we're gonna die. And nowadays, the moment we see a sink, we just stick our hand in there. Yeah. Right. So, but like that's the thing, right? Like we've come to a place where we can trust each other, right? And I think that's kind of like the reason why I'm so into them, because they're fun, right? And there's lots of puzzles. It's something to do. But more so than that, I think the beautiful thing about escape rooms is that I learn about people. I learn how they tick. And like obviously I've done some with strangers before, and I'm never going to see those kinds of people again. But there are also other people that like I've learned about the kind of person that they are. Some people, like, you find out that they're horrible people in escape rooms. You find out they're vegans. Like, get out of here. You find out that they're kind of people who will like they will sacrifice you if it means like their own life is on the line, right? But there's another person, for example, that I always keep her in mind, is because like when I first met her, I thought she was like the ditziest person on the planet. But like when we did an escape room for the first time together, she was solving math problems that I couldn't even think about in her head. Right. I was like, oh, you're actually pretty smart. I would not have guessed that about you, right? But like again, like that's kind of like a very superficial way of putting it. Like with other people, right? I've discovered that like this person in particular is very good at just working with people. This person is very good. Has a very good game sense, right? So he sees goal. He says point A, point B, and he's able to like formulate a way. He's able to formulate a plan on how to get from point A to point B and like fill in all the right?
Yeah.
Also, those so there's big picture guys or small picture people.
Right.
Yeah, and I think you need to you kind of have to round out the people that you go with. You have to kind of have like your own like little A team that you got to go that have different skill sets. Like when I went to the escape room, like one of the puzzles was figuring out the combination for like this unconventional lock. It wasn't like a number combination lock. It was one of those like up, down, left,
directional
right.
locks,
Directional locks. And then like to figure out the combination, I noticed that there was like these 4 pictures on the wall, and they all they kind of had like a directionality to them. It's like, oh, well, maybe this is the combination, and then we tried it, and then that actually opened up. And I mean, not this be tooting my own horn or anything, but I just finished art school, and the entire time is they teach you how to look at things, right? And they teach you how to notice especially brush strokes and things like that. Like you can tell like the directionality of things, and I think if maybe if I wasn't there, like it would have taken longer for them to realize.
Yeah,
So you need to So I guess what I'm trying to say is like you gotta have get people like with diverse skill sets, and like even like people who don't necessarily think like you, because maybe they'll see something in a way that that you don't, or like like two people, like two other people, like they might think like you do, but this fourth person sees it a little bit differently, and that might be the difference.
Yeah, I don't know where my sweater is, but we actually made sweaters for the squad for the squadettes. But like we all have little nicknames for each other, right? So for example, there's one guy the guy who's really good at looking for things. We call him the search engine. And so like we all have little nicknames for each other, but mine is Amadeus, right? Because I'm not actually I don't think I'm that good at escape room. At least I wasn't before when we started doing them. Right?
That's a perfect nickname for you, because you are freaking. When I went with you, like you're just like let's.
But that's the thing.
You were
right?
composing that whole thing. Like
I had to develop that though.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and the reason why we chose our nicknames for each other, and mine being Amadeus after Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, is because I'm not that good at myself at solving puzzles, but I know what other people can do. So I automatically know like, oh, like you go do this, you do this, you do this, you do this. And that's kind of like where my position is as like just kind of like
you're a composer when it comes to these.
Right. And so like but like that's the thing is that like after watching other people do it for so long, I know what to do now. Right. So again, like I don't know, like I'm okay at puzzles, but like I've noticed with the people that I go with the most regularly, like my skills are dwarfed by what they can do, right? But yeah, just I think I found that about myself, and just being like my own strengths, my own weaknesses, and like how that also like translates over to my skill sets and the things that I do for my vocation, as my interests, whenever we do anything else, and also being able to like understand what people are like outside of escape rooms too, right? Like again, like going back to that person who like I thought that she was super ditzy but able to solve math problems really well. It's funny because I think in escape rooms, the reason why I like doing scary ones is because it brings out the true nature of a person.
It's a crucible.
Yeah.
It reveals.
Yeah.
It reveals things.
Yeah. So like I know that about people now, and especially with like some.
All right, you can't be trusted. You can't hold. You have a weak bladder. You're cool.
Yeah, basically, but like not that I necessarily discriminate against certain people or say like, oh, like you're not my friend anymore because you ditched me and that went one escape room. Like it's not like that. I still do hang out with people, but I think that the reason why the people that formed our little escape room squad, those are my closest friends now. Like I can say that without a shadow of a doubt, and like we hang out outside of escape rooms, but like we know each other at this point, and I'm very thankful that like this whole it's interesting that escape rooms are I think they've peaked And
I think that's fair to say.
yeah, like I don't hear as much about this escape room craze anymore.
Right. Mhm.
Like everybody knows
Yeah,
what it is.
before,
at
like
this
everyone,
point.
you know, everyone and their mother was posting like, you know, their like result, like, you know, at the end they should give you like the cards, like if you succeed, then it's like, yeah, we did it, or
Yeah.
you know, if you lose and it's like we suck, but like you don't see those pictures anymore, you know. So yeah, I think the craze has died down.
Right.
That's
But
unfortunate.
yeah, I mean they're still out there, right?
Mhm.
But like they're
Yeah, I mean, I only went once, and like like that escape room keeps like bombarding me with email spams, like saying,
Yeah.
"Oh, try out this new thing." I was like, whatever.
yeah. But even past that, right? Like it's just the memories remain, right? Like remember that time when you know,
Yeah.
like you almost killed someone when you shoved them out the chute, you know, like
Right, yeah.
all those kinds of things. And so like we've bonded so strongly over those experiences, and I think you know, like for like I know that's like a big company thing, right? Like a lot of companies go to escape rooms and they
Right,
advertise
yeah.
themselves
Yeah,
as,
for
like,
team building.
Yeah.
But I think just as even like as a social exercise, to like be to understand who the people that you're with, to really understand like, oh, like who am I working with? And nowadays, like we've been together for like our little squad has been together for like 3 years, and sometimes we still do escape rooms and we blow them wide open. We've set some running records at like some of the biggest escape rooms here in LA, and it's just like, dang, like we get each other, we understand each other, but then like even when we come out of the escape room, like we're practically finishing each other's sentences. Like when one person like is like, hey, you remember that time? I was like, yeah, I do, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, like I think for anybody who's willing to like really try to understand people, escape rooms are such a wonderful experience. And like again, like going back to that thing about how people don't really trust each other in escape rooms, that's really odd to me, because I feel like escape rooms are almost meant to test your trust, right? In a way, the more people that are in that room that you trust, the better you're going to do. But since so many people trust so few people, it almost limits them on like how well those like 5 minds that think together properly are almost certainly going to do better than 2 people, because you have 5 minds working on like 1 or 5 puzzles. But people are just like, no, like I don't trust other people, and it's almost bucking against the very reason why escape rooms were formed in the first place. So I think that's odd, and I've learned, but maybe even for me too, right? Like I went through a cynical phase where I'm just like, yeah, like people suck at escape rooms. But now 3 years into it, you know, having reviewed a bunch of escape rooms, done a bunch of escape rooms, like gone through the phase of like good escape rooms, bad escape rooms. Nowadays, it's just like, yeah, let's do this because I want to be with people.
Right.
I want to enjoy this experience with you. There are some times where we walk into an escape room and we're like, where's the record? We're going to smash it today. There's other times where it's like, hey, you're going to get the piss scared out of you today, and I'm going to record it. And like, so whenever I go with students, right, no pressure for me at that point, because it's like, hey, like I'm here to see what you guys can do. I'm here because I want to spend time with you. I'm here because there's going to be a mummy that pops out of that wall and you're going to scare the piss out of us. And then we're going to go get Korean barbecue later. And we're going to be like, hey, you remember that mummy? You know, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And man, like I feel like I'd be very different without escape rooms. I know that sounds very interesting. But like, just like, there's also a community that goes on just kind of like behind the scenes of people who like, they make escape rooms, they develop escape rooms, they do escape rooms like me. And I've also met people like that, right? Just, there was one guy that I remember, there's an escape room down here in Hollywood, NoHo, called The Room. Just called The Room. It's like a horror themed escape room. So he was hosting our room. About a year later, I went to another location called Quest Rooms, and I walk in, and that guy was there. So I was like, "Oh, you're working here now." And then I befriended him on Facebook, and then I went to another room very recently, maybe like a couple of months ago, called called it's called Hidden Passage here in Silmar. I walk in, and the same dude is sitting behind the counter over there. So like 3 different locations. I was like, Benjamin. It's like, Kevin. So we like right like that whole community. I think that it's just connected me with a lot of people as well over this one single common interest. And like I guess that's I mean, like, obviously you can do that with like cooking and food and stuff like that, but like I think with the camaraderie that comes with like, hey, we're doing this together. Like we're here to make this whole escape room thing better for the people who do them, in terms of like the rooms that we review, the reviews that we give, and just like the people that we do them with, and the fact that we actually trust one another to do these rooms. Like it inherently builds up trust between people just by nature, and I think that's what like one of the most life-changing things about doing escape rooms. I know it's weird to talk about a game and like a concept that like it's life-changing, but it really has been. I think
as I say, like Jenga changed my life.
Yeah, I've never been the most outgoing person, but it's funny because I feel like I talk the most out of all my friends, as you can tell.
Well, in this context, it's fine.
Yeah,
you're the guest, and you have to talk. So the fact that you're talking, you're talking.
You're really hogging up the airtime.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing, though. It's a good thing. Don't let Snarky McGee over here persuade you.
Damn, I talked
You're hogging up my airtime, dude.
Yeah. But like, I think it was part of a journey for me, right? Like I also drove for Lyft for a couple of years, and like that also taught me like, hey, like Kevin, like you have to be able to engage with people that you've never engaged with, and that you're never going to see them again. Mm-hmm. How, like, can you make, not necessarily, can you make an impression on them? Mm-hmm. And if not, like, how are you going to fill the space that you have for like 30, 45 minutes while you drive this person from point A to point B? Mm-hmm. I kind of feel similar about escape rooms. And just like, I have students who are like just so introverted and so shy, and they're like, like I don't know how to talk to people, right? I have one student who just like, it was heartbreaking actually. I took her to an ice cream shop, and at a lot of ice cream shops you get free samples. You get as many samples as you want.
Yeah, like you go to Menchie's, get a little sample cup.
Yeah,
so
like ice cream, froyo, all these things, right? And I was like asking for this sample, this sample, this sample. She wasn't asking for any samples, which is really odd to me. I was like, dude, it's free ice cream, right? Yeah. And then
Baskin Robbins gave me those free samples.
And then she turns to me and she was like, "This is the worst part of my day." I was like, "What's the worst part of your day?" "We're getting ice cream." And she's like, "No, talking to strangers."
Oh.
And I think like we kind of talked about this right before the show, but just like the fact that so many people are looking at their phones all the time, right, especially with the younger generation, and I see it, right, with like the parent. I kind of understand, right, with how both parents go to work and are trying to give their kid the best life, but in order for them to do that, they have to leave their kid alone, and so they just give their kid an iPad, or they give their kid an iPhone or like a laptop or something like that, and they're like, "Hey, do what you want," right? But it's almost socially stunting a lot of the people around us.
Yeah, because I remember I was out with my cousin and her husband and their kids at this restaurant, and I just, as we were eating and talking, whatever, I just kind of looking around, and noticing all the kids with iPads and just looking down, just like, as their parents were, talking or whatever, or just, having lunch. And I was like, this is kind of tragic. Yeah. Because, what is it? Because when growing, three of us here, like, I think we can safely say that we didn't grow up with that. If our parents, dragged us to dinner with their friends, we were forced to just sit there and, like, either deal with it, and and I think that kind of takes away from like kind of like, that something is being lost there. A lesson is being lost or not being taught in that moment. It's like, okay, so I know this isn't, and the lesson is like, I know this isn't the place that you'd want to be, but you just have to make the best of it, and you maybe even like let the even kid get involved with the conversation. You know that. How do you learn to talk to people? Get them to talk to people. Get them to talk to older people. You know, and I think that'd be the best kind of practice for when they get older. And you know, but now like kids, you know, like to keep them quiet or whatever, the parents will just shove an iPad in their face and it's like, okay, just shut up and leave mommy and daddy alone to, you know, have their adult time. It's like, no, just involve the kids, get them involved, or teach them to like suck it up and and just endure.
Yeah,
I think that's the lesson that's not being taught these days is endurance.
Yeah.
You know, and not just like so it's just like being in a place that you don't necessarily want to be, but you know,
kind of just have to push through it.
Yeah, push through it. Yeah, suck it up and either engage or just just sit there, because I can't but tell you how many times I went out with my parents and like with their friends, and I was like the only kid there, and I had to just like sit there, or I had to like engage in the conversation somehow in my limited capacity.
Yeah, there's a book that came out. I don't know if this is necessarily recent. It hit like a bestseller list called Modern Romance by, I believe, Aziz Ansari wrote it. And I know that he went through some stuff. But
rightly or wrongly,
But he made some great points in that book, especially in the sense that like it's talking about how back then, like marriage, that whole culture was not about like it wasn't necessarily about the romance, right? You didn't marry somebody because you were romantically interested in them. You married them because there was a purpose to it. Like, oh, this person, I'm marrying you because you're going to help me on the farm, right?
Yeah.
True.
And like,
true.
But the romance would develop afterward, right? And he was just it was basically like a book of social commentary on how social media has changed the way that we interact with one another.
Absolutely. Cell phones have changed everything.
So like just looking at some of my kids and my students, whenever I say my kids, people think like, you have kids? Yeah. But whenever I look at some of my students and just like that inability to engage people, like it almost makes me want to cry. Like just like, wow, like what generation are we growing up in that like the only way that we know how to engage people is through the presentation of ourselves through this media that other people could do, right? Like one of my favorite examples is again going back to Facebook, how someone can post something, and then you can spend 45 minutes or like even a couple of days trying to come up with the best way to make a comment on this picture that will present you in like that, to make you sound funny or to make you sound really smart. It's like an illusion of who you actually are, because in real life you don't get 45 minutes to present who you are.
Nope.
No, you get like 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Right. But like, so either you have to learn the social skills to be able to present yourself that quickly, like on the spot, or you have to be very comfortable with who you are. And
that's pretty interesting, because I remember just recently that this influencer on Instagram that I follow, she put out this post, I guess she got like this partnership with Lyft or whatever, and said, oh, use promo code, whatever, and get, however many % off. And then, I just like immediately, it's like, I know what to say. So I know what to comment. It's like, well, I don't really use Lyft. I think I'm a pretty good driver. Yeah, especially after a few drinks. It just seems like the cars just get out of my way from me. Right? It was just like, it just came to me that quickly. And it was just, because I was riffing off of what she was like saying too. Because like, oh, like, I think it was like during some like holiday weekends, like, oh, get home safe and blah blah blah. Be responsible, get home safe. And so I was like, I made a drunk driving joke,
but off the top of your head.
But off the top of my head. But it was just because of like the practice and like, being able, kind of exercising that muscle,
Yeah.
It's like the more you use it, the quicker things are going to happen for you.
Right. Yeah. I believe like, the way that you perform socially, it is a muscle basically. Like there's a muscle memory to it. So like even for me, somebody who sucks at small talk, like I'm getting better at it because I'm constantly shoved into situations where it's like, oh, like I have 5 seconds to make an impression on this person. What do I say?
What do you think about the weather, Kevin?
It's kind of hot. but yeah, I still suck at small talk. But watching some of these kids, right? Like it's really weird being interesting. Because I don't feel like I'm that interesting, but like some of my my students are just like, dude, like how do you know so much, right? Or how do you experience so much?
Experience.
Like,
That's what it is.
Just get out
You
there.
have to put yourself out
Just
there.
get out there.
Yeah.
That's all it is. Yeah, it's funny because I was seeing this coming because there was this one kid I know. He's not a kid anymore, but it was one of my not directly one of my students, but a student back when I used to do Sunday school and stuff. And another church was doing like this basketball tournament thing, and he literally asked me, "How do I ask to get involved? That our church get involved in this?" It's like, what? It's like, yeah. What do I say? It's like, what do you mean? It's like, yeah. It's like, I want our church to be involved in this, but like, how do I ask? I was like, just go and ask. It's like, oh, hi, pastor. Did I send a call or send an email to the pastor? It's like, hey, pastor, what so and so? It's like, I would really like our church to participate in this basketball tournament that you're putting on. Please let me know the details. Please let me know. And I literally had to tell him what he had to say to get involved in this basketball tournament. I was like, just go ask. Like, ask how you would ask for anything else.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's probably a host of different factors, right? Just involved with why people are not able to do these things anymore. Like, obviously, we're pointing to social media as one of the big things, right? But
I mean, this was like back even before, like, Facebook or like even MySpace were like really that big. And I mean, and yeah, this kid kind of is a little bit on the awkward side. He was already kind of a little bit awkward, but it's just like.
But like, that's the thing, right? Like, I think that I hate to bag on social media some more, but we've gotten to a point where, like, again, people get to present the best side of themselves, and they never see the ugly sides of what's going on.
Right. That also reminds me of kind of this kind of inspirational kind of quote, of don't compare someone's highlight reel to your behind the scenes.
Yeah, it's pretty popular. I don't know if that's necessarily popular in churches, but I've definitely heard it before, and I don't think that social media is helping in the sense that it's presenting people with, like, I have a kid. I have multiple kids actually who they just they compare themselves to those highlights, right? Like you said, and they like there's a reason why like depression and suicide rates are freaking rampant right now, especially among teenagers, and like drug use and all this jazz. It's just kind of like, man, like, what are they going through? And I think the reality is just like, hey, like, they're like, people before this age, like we've never really had this rampant of a problem with the youth before,
or it wasn't like as constant. Because I mean, you could kind of see back in the day, like those teeny bopper magazines as kind of.
But it's not the same thing.
It's a form, but it's not something that you carry around with you constantly, and then you constantly get notifications about. Just every month a new magazine came out and a new like cover person that you're supposed to like envy or emulate. But nowadays, like, you have your smartphone, you have your Instagram, you have your Facebook or what have you. So it's like this constant. It's always with you, and it's constantly letting you know that some other person is being quote unquote awesome.
Yeah, the Toronto Raptors just won the NBA championship. Go Raptors! I love Kawhi Leonard. But like, I think.
You're not an American.
Yeah.
But someone made this
maple syrup sucker. Get out of here.
I love maple syrup. So.
Me too.
But someone made this comment saying, "Hey, Kawhi Leonard made it okay to be awkward." Because he is like, there's this one post.
I heard about it. Yeah.
There's this one post that happened a year ago because he got traded from the San Antonio Spurs to the Toronto Raptors just last year, and he's super quiet, right? And like a whole bunch of stuff happened. Sports heads out there would know what's going on, but basically there was like a whole bunch of drama with the Spurs, which is why he was asking for a trade, and he wasn't saying anything. And once he got traded to the Raptors, there was this video that went viral about his laugh.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, I have a weird laugh. Okay, like I know weird laughs.
Mhm.
This guy has a weird laugh, right?
Mhm.
But he basically led in his first year with the new team. He led that team to a championship,
Right.
and people were like, "Yeah, he made it okay to be awkward," right? But that's the thing, right? Like, when was it like not okay to just kind of be like, like I don't really, I want to be quiet. I want to be left alone. Like I'll still engage. I still know how, but there's a part of me that like I don't necessarily want to reveal to another person, right? And I think with today's with today's generations, like both like the millennials, Generation Z, whatever you want to call it, a lot of people are being taught like, hey, like it's not okay to be like introverted. It's not okay to be awkward, right? As opposed to, like someone like me, where it's like, yeah, I'm freaking awkward. I have things that I like to do that nobody else is interested in,
Mhm.
but I'm comfortable with that. I'm okay
Right.
with that. That's what makes me who I am.
Right.
I
We all
love
have our
it.
own little idiosyncrasies.
Yeah,
And I think, Kawhi Leonard, I think, he made it okay for you to be who you are.
Yeah.
If you have a weird laugh or, you like, seemingly unusual things.
yeah. But again, like today's people are not being taught that. They're being taught there's a mold that you have to fit, and if you don't fit in that mold, you will be rejected from society.
I know. I mean, it's kind of funny. It's funny, but it's true because if
Yeah.
you look at any post by some like Instaho or whatever, it's like it's always the same. It's always the same pose, or it's always this, it's always the Belfie, or
Yeah.
it's always this certain angle, or for the photo, and it's like so you're right saying that there is a mold.
Yeah, and I don't know.
And maybe it's not necessarily that it's being, that it's being enforced, but it's not being opposed.
Mhm.
That's what it is.
It's being reinforced. I think might be.
I don't know about reinforced, but it's just not being opposed.
Yeah, but I mean, again, like I'm glad that these days, like there are people coming out, especially like. Again, as an NBA head, there are people coming out in the NBA who are like, hey, like I do struggle with depression,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I do struggle with these issues.
Terrible.
Like you hear some of the
Terrible. They should just suck it up.
But like
You're a role model now. Suck it up.
yeah, but like like these days, it's like no, like. I think that sometimes we place these people on a pedestal, but we don't understand that they have their own issues. They're still humans.
Yeah.
They're not machines that are.
Yeah, they're not.
made and bred for
They're
entertainment.
not a piece of marble. They're
Yeah.
human beings. They're flesh and blood, just like everybody else. Like they feel the same things we feel, maybe not in the same intensity or even the same capacity that we do, but they still feel them.
Yeah, or even more of it, like more of these things, right? And so it's just like, man, like I wish that people up like near the top, like especially as role models, like obviously the most famous basketball player in the world, LeBron James, right? Like he's pretty transparent, like obviously not about everything, right? Because he wants his privacy too, but like in terms of like opening schools, in terms of opening schools for the poor back in Cleveland, right? Like
Yeah.
doing all these things, and obviously, like I said, like I don't know everything about his life. He's not that transparent, right? But he's using his platform as somebody who's famous to speak against and for the things that he believes.
I'll give him that because I will say like when it comes to LeBron James, I don't like him, but he does
I don't
do
either.
he does do a lot of. He has done a lot of good things.
Yeah.
So like you said, he's kind of a dick, but like it's,
And
but,
some of his personal takes are like I
cringeworthy.
don't agree, and
but yeah, like I said with the school stuff, like that's. I mean, he put his money where his mouth is.
Yeah.
So I'll give him that. That's hard to do because there's a lot of people that just they will shout stuff all over the place, but they don't do a damn thing about it.
Yeah. And I'm glad that the NBA, the MLB are coming out with like they're being more transparent about themselves, and like I hope that people look at that as kind of like more of like, hey, like it's even at the top of society, even at the top of like your
Right.
class, like it's like they still struggle with the same issues that every human being does.
I guess I struggle with that a little bit because when it comes to sports because I feel like with my age, we're all pretty much around the same age. But I went from like there were heroes like in like the sporting figures where there was kind of like not. I don't know, idols would be the right way to put it, but it's kind of like people we really looked up to, but they were kind of like mysterious and like they're just, it's kind of, they're over there, and it's we did put them on a pedestal. It's heroes that we had, but now it's like we've gotten to a point where it's like, oh well, they're just kind of like us, which I mean it's fine. I mean I still like that, I guess. One of my favorite heroes when it comes to sport. Obviously I'm a huge racing fan. I love stock car racing. I love IndyCar, F1, all that stuff. My favorite driver was always Dale Earnhardt. And he was the Superman of the sport. I mean, the guy could do anything. He was a wild man. I like that. And he did a lot of like good stuff. He was a flawed guy. I know that, but he was someone I really looked up to because he came from literally nothing and made himself into something and revolutionized his sport. And there's no driver, there's no personality like that in the sport today. But I still love the sport. I mean, there's and even you were talking about how there's certain guys that are coming out like, oh well, they deal with kind of the same issues that we all deal with. That's happened in NASCAR too. One of the young up and coming guys, like he's like, there's times where anxiety and depression is a huge part of it, because the sport it's hard. It's in NASCAR especially is hard because it's not just are you good at what you do, because everyone that makes it to the top level, the cup level, they're all good. Yeah, they're all champions in some form or another. And you put certain guys in certain equipment, in good equipment, they're gonna win races. But that's not always the case. Like you sometimes like they're in equipment that's not gonna win a race. So they're kind of like, and when you've gone from being a champion to like you're struggling to finish 10th or 15th, I can see where that becomes a depression. And the other thing is like with sponsorship, it becomes like you're always thinking about the business model too. So there's more pressure, I think, in that type of sport. You're not unlike baseball, basketball, like it's all about getting that, putting up the numbers, getting the results, getting the contracts, and then you're set for life. Not always the case in racing. And so I'm always a little bit torn when it comes to like seeing everyone kind of like, oh wow, they're just like me. And I always talk about this stuff. It's like where people are looking to certain people. It's like, well, if you see it, you can do it. It's like, well, no, I think that's horseshit too. Yeah, that's a horseshit ideology. It's like, no, if you want to do something, you might not attain it, but go for it. Who cares if like no one else has done it before? Maybe you're the guy that's gonna go and be the first to do it. It's like, why do you need to see someone else do it? That's
I'll be the first. Me, thank you very much.
Oh God. But no, it's why do you? That's lazy. That's lazy thing. It's like, oh, I can't do it until I see someone else do it. That's dumb. Who cares? But I'm a little torn with like because I don't see like the certain sports, like I don't see the hero aspect anymore. Like we're just like, oh well, they're just like us. That's cool. Like
right, it's like someone else has to be the hero first, and then I can do it. Yeah, that's the thing. That's the mentality. That's the ideology that's being pushed out now.
Yeah, I was having a discussion with a friend pretty recently about how there's not, when you look at the movie scene these days, there's not a lot of very innovative movie concepts coming out.
There's zero,
right? Like I think the two most popular ones were the ones by Jordan Peele, right? Get Out and Us. Right, and people love those movies because they were new. But look at every other movie that's coming out these days. It's either a sequel or a remake, right? And I think just these days, it's like they're scared of innovating,
True.
because they're scared of making mistakes. They're scared of
Well,
making.
because it's like it's kind of like the new trilogy for Star Wars. You know, instead of advancing the mythology and advancing the story, they just went back to A New Hope.
Yeah, it's just like
They're afraid. You know, I think some of it is understandable because like the fandom for Star Wars is like so huge, and so like if you don't make the perfect like Star Wars movie, then you're gonna be rigged over the coals. But if you play it too safe, you're gonna be rigged over the coals. So you have to find. But I think people had such a bad taste in their mouth after the prequels, and it's funny after having some time away from when like the prequels were released, I kind of appreciate the prequels.
Two's still awful.
Okay, yes, 2 is still awful, but I'm finding a new appreciation for now that I had like the separation. But then to go from Return of the Jedi and then basically just going back to New Hope and like and hamstringing a lot of the characters, like Han Solo, he had an entire character arc in the original trilogy. He was like the roguish bandit, and then he ends up becoming one of the leaders of the rebellion. But then in Force Awakens, he goes back to being the rogue bandit. It's like, what? And he also becomes a deadbeat dad because he because his son goes crazy and goes to the dark side. He then all of a sudden decides to leave and not like try to fight for his son. It's like, what?
Yeah, what happened to character development?
Yeah, exactly, character development. Like, why didn't they just like start off with like the New Republic being a thing, and then like this new sect, the remnants of the former empire coming back into power and like kind of challenging. It's like that would have been an amazing story to see Han Solo as like a general or a senator or something, a leader within the new government or something. Same thing with Leia too. She could have been the chancellor or whatever of the New Republic, whatever. But no. They just go back. He's like, oh, they love New Hope, so let's just give them New Hope, like new with a new rapper.
Yeah,
it's like no.
Yeah, but I don't know if any of this is like necessarily linked together, but I think it just comes to mind, right? Like for example, for me, it was Toy Story 4. I was like, dude, I thought this over like 2 movies ago.
Yeah, seriously.
But like, just like I feel like we're living in a society that just in general is like afraid of taking those risks and putting a step forward, and that's like, what is that teaching people, right? Like that's okay just to rehash arguments.
If you want a really interesting and like fresh like story, watch Hell or High Water.
Hell or High Water.
Yeah, that's a good movie, and it tells for the most part an original story, but it is it's so well done. It's such a good story. I don't want to ruin too much, but just go watch it.
Hell or High Water. Okay.
Yeah, Hell or High Water.
Yeah. Was it well? Because speaking of movies too, like because we recently did a discussion on movies on the podcast, and we did like our top 5. All of mine are like 20+ years old, like movies that I like. Some are, I think the majority of them were like, some were like 80 years, almost 80 years old now.
Yeah.
But we also did a for our live stream that we do. We watched a Korean movie that came out a couple years ago.
Like sometime last year.
Yeah, it's called Burning.
Burning, haven't heard of it.
Yeah,
it's on Netflix.
It stars Steven Yeun from Walking Dead.
Holy crap, that was a great movie.
That was a good movie.
Oh my gosh.
Maybe just America that's not coming up with anything new.
Well,
or they just take whatever another country makes it, and they just make a remake.
Yeah.
Hence the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, or
that was a book.
Well, yeah, and then the god awful Old Boy remake.
Oh my gosh.
Well, because I've talked about this on this podcast before. I hate movie remakes, like for the most part. There's a few that have been done like well. Like one in particular, like the Producers remake, from now it's about like 10 years ago now. Yeah, that was pretty good. 2000s. Yeah. That was actually pretty good. But for the most part, they're all god awful. Like it's kind of like a bastardization of something that was already like great, and it isn't it's ramped up recently, but it's not a recent phenomenon. Like they've done it with other, like King Kong has been remade several times. Hell, we even did a Alfred Hitchcock, we did a series of Alfred Hitchcock reviews back in October, and he actually remade one of his films that he did he did one in the early 30s, and then he remade it 20 years later in the 50s. The 50, and actually in that case, it was by this. He did the movie, he did the remake, but the 50s version was better in that case. I'll give him that. So occasionally the remakes are better, but for the most part, it's terrible. Like Ghostbusters, garbage, absolute.
Wait,
garbage.
have you seen it?
The female one?
Yeah,
it's terrible.
I still haven't seen it.
It is the biggest feminist claptrap bullshit. Oh god, it's terrible.
Yeah, but I don't know. Again, I don't know if this is like a social commentary or anything like that. Just like seeing how movies are going down that path.
And I know you're not technically a movie guy.
Yeah, I'm really not like a big movie person. I for a long time because I'm a story person, so I love reading.
Oh, so then you'll definitely love Hell or High Water.
Yeah. But it's hard to fit like a really good cohesive story in the span of like 2-3 hours. I'm not saying that there's not good movies like that, right? But like in order to make a really good stories, you like I don't know, like Titanic, right? Like huge blockbuster hit, right? Like you need a long time.
Yeah, you need that time. Or like Endgame, you kind of need that time.
Yeah. But even Endgame was that's the last part of like this giant,
right? And then even in that
story,
that was like separated into acts, right? Like the first, second, third act,
right? So I'm not a huge movie person until I had a friend and I asked her what you like movies, what are your favorite movies? And she's like, just like action comedies. And I was like, why do you like those movies? And she's like, because sometimes I just like to turn my brain off and just like watch the action, right? And I was like, that's valid. So I watched Baby Driver. After I had that conversation, I watched Baby Driver. That is a
great movie.
Yeah, like that was my thing, right? Like I think if I had gone into it with the mentality of like, we're watching this for a story. No. But like if you're watching it for like the action and the cinematography, like you notice things that are like, whoa.
Right.
Like
and the usage of like colors and music.
Oh, yeah. So like I loved Baby Driver, but I think I had to go into it with a new mentality. And then after that, I actually ended up watching John Wick 1 and 2.
Oh yeah.
John Wick.
Again, another movie where it's like, the story setup is like 10-20 minutes. The rest of it is him blowing people's brains out with.
It's awesome. Well, like one of my favorite films. It wasn't in my top 5 because mine were more story driven, dramas. But when it comes to action films, I love the Die Hard series. Especially in one of my favorite ones in this. I love them all, but my favorite one is Die Hard with a Vengeance. It is. It's like it's the middle ground between it's kind of a serious film, but it's also so over the top ridiculous. It's great, and the mixture of Bruce Willis as John McClane and Samuel L. Jackson as his sidekick. It's the best duo.
Yeah.
It's and it's the same thing with like Lethal Weapon. I like the characters in that. It's just kind of crazy over the top action.
Yeah, Riggs.
Yeah, all the Mission Impossible films except for number 2. Number 2 is
2 is garbage.
2 is absolute garbage. That's funny. The funny thing is Mission Impossible 2 is the first one I saw of that series. That was and I was at the time it was oh, this is pretty cool. And I go back and and over the course of I've watched all the movies several times over now. And I was like, wow, number 2 is absolute garbage. It's dog shit.
It came out in the early 2000s, right?
Yeah, it is definitely a product of its time. Yeah, it is, but it's absolute dog shit. It was
trying to capitalize on the the Matrix style kind of action.
It was the Crouching Tiger, Matrix style action.
Yeah.
And all the movies from that time period, action films from that time period, kind of did the same thing.
Right.
Yeah.
It's God, it was dog shit. It was so terrible.
Yeah, definitely not a big movie person for me, but like I think I had to relearn how to do it.
I think it's you knowing like certain movies do different things. Like like if you're looking for like action, turn your mind off. Like it's over the top. It's crazy. It's over the top. It's ridiculous. Then there's other ones that are more dramatic that do have like it's not necessarily like the story is fully fleshed out, but it's the cinematography, it's the acting. We did a breakdown of like Chinatown and The Godfather, two of they're in the top 100 movies of all time list.
Yeah, AFI.
Yeah, the AFI top 100 list. Those are great movies. But it's like they're different style of movies, and there's a lot going on in those films. Godfather, especially, I think that's one of it deserves like that one of the top movies of all time. Like it's really great.
Yeah,
you actually might like that one because that one is a little bit longer, and especially if you watch the trilogy as a whole, because it does tell like a whole story as it goes on. Like people consistently watch, especially 1 and 2. And you start. It's a really good story. I think you might actually like that one.
I'll have to get. People have been giving me movie suggestions for a long time, so I'm just like, I'll just start with some of the Academy Award stuff, like the stuff that like everybody seems to like, and like some of that stuff is okay.
I wouldn't necessarily go with like Academy Award.
Well, it's just like it's a base, right? Like, and then from there, it's just kind of like, oh, I kind of like this movie, don't like this one, don't like this one, like that kind of stuff.
I think you might like some of the older movies, just because I felt like they cared a little bit more.
Yeah, man. Like I don't know. Just kind of like bring this conversation back to where it started. Like you mentioned like caring, right? You mentioned just like, hey, like for them it was a craft.
Yeah,
it's a work of love. For them, like they loved what they do.
So it was. I felt like it in. Recently, like movies now, it's like it's trying to like force a message down people's throats that like nobody really wants. Whereas back, you were in. I mean, there's always been shitty movies. Like, I mean,
there's always been schlock.
I mean, one of my favorite series is the Mystery Science Theater 3000, where they make fun of shitty films, which is great, and I love it. But but as far as like. What Academy Award, Best Picture, movie side, recently, what's considered the best film is really not all that good. It's because it's trying to force feed a message that nobody wants, whereas, even 20, 25, 30 years ago, people were trying to make films that. Where it's like, I just want to make the best film. Like I want to have a good story, good characters, good acting, and be different. Maybe obviously like everyone takes inspiration from other people, but it's like, but I want to do something different than everyone else.
Yeah.
Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. A couple of my favorite directors are like Stanley Kubrick and Christopher Nolan. They do, obviously, like, their films have like a certain, you can tell they're involved.
Yeah.
But they're doing something different than everyone else.
Yeah. And they, like, you can see it, right? You can see when people put passion into it, even if the movie's crappy or whatever, right? Like everyone starts somewhere and everybody has bombs, right? But like, I think that does link into just like how, it's not that they don't care, obviously, because like you have to like understand like people have like constructive feedback and constructive like criticism and stuff like that. But like even going back to like, for example, escape rooms. One of my favorite escape rooms that I did was down in San Diego, where literally everything was handmade. That dude put
Wow.
blood, sweat,
Wow.
and tears into that room, and I was like,
I saw
dang,
all the props,
yeah,
everything.
everything. Like, and he also showed us the room that he was doing. He was like breaking down the walls himself and like constructing like the walls and the little hiding.
That is someone that loves that.
Wow.
He loves it, and you could tell, right? But that's the thing, right? Like, is that he's not like, obviously, like you said, right? There's little bits and pieces where you can see like where he's inspired by other people, the things that he likes to do, and the things that he doesn't. But there's a personality to it, right? And there's also an aspect of like, I don't care if I fail, right? He's not afraid of that. And like, again, these days it's like that seems pretty rare, right? People who like, I go rock climbing a lot, and there is a difference between the people who make it to the top of the wall and the people who don't, especially on the harder climbs. And it's the people who like, there's people who look at the wall, they try it once or twice, they fall off, they fail, and they're like, this wall sucks, I'm not doing it again. Then there's the people who are like, how do I do this better? How do I do this? Like, how do I get up the wall in a more efficient way, in a way that doesn't tire my arms out as much, it doesn't like tire my legs out, and I think that analogy also just carries over, is that, there are people who they don't like, even if they fail, right? They're just like, hey, like, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with falling off the wall because like, I know that there is a way that I have to get better. I have to get stronger. I have to be able to figure out a way to get back up the wall. And these days, right? Like I unfortunately see more the people, like more the former. Just people who are just like, hey, like I'm scared. I don't want to do it. Right. We're going to, some of my students and I are going to Six Flags next week. And like, I have like a handful of them who are like, oh, I don't want to go because I'm scared of roller coasters. Right. Which I understand. Right. There are people who are scared of heights and stuff like that.
I was the same way.
Yeah.
When I was a young kid. But then once, I did get on that roller coaster and I did, the kind of, what is it? The safe kind of danger that you put yourself in, it's like once you get over that, it's just like, this is exhilarating.
Yeah.
This is fun.
Yeah. And I went through the same thing when I was in 8th grade, went to Six Flags. I was scared to death. And like, I had two friends who were like, we're going to go on every single roller coaster until you're broken. We are going to break you. And like, after like 2 or 3 coasters, I was like, woo! Right. Like, and like, that's the thing, right? I would love to see that in some of my students, but these are students that never take risks. They would rather be holed up in their rooms, just playing on their Switch or whatever, right? One of my students was like, "Hey, like I there's this game, but it's too hard." Or Celeste, right?
Yeah.
This game, it's too hard, right? But again, like this with Celeste, the only difficult thing about Celeste is not like it's like a puzzle platformer, but the difficult thing is not like how do I do it? It's the execution.
Yeah, it's figuring it out.
Yeah, it's the only limiting factor is your fingers, and like once you get over it, you just keep going, right? But like these are students that are just like, I don't know how to do this, so I'm just gonna give up. And I just see that so often, like as just kind of like as an indicator of like, hey, like this is, like we live in a culture these days where
Nobody wants to challenge.
Yeah, we want the easy way out, right? We want to play it safe. We don't want
or you want to see other people do it, but you don't necessarily want to do it yourself. Because I mean, I have a nephew who like he constantly watches like playthroughs of like Minecraft or whatever or Fortnite or whatever. It's like, and I see him on his phone and it's like and I think that he's playing. It's like, oh, and then all of a sudden it's like a YouTube video. It's like, oh, next video is about to play. I was like, wait, you're watching somebody play a game? It's like, yeah. I was like, why don't you play the game yourself? It's like, oh, but this is more fun.
I see, and now I'll say this. Obviously, like everyone knows I play games. Like everyone knows that, right? But I do watch like playthroughs of like stuff. Either it's like something. Oh, I don't know what this game is. Let me like check out.
Right.
Like,
I mean, I understand that, but it's like, my nephew doesn't even have the game downloaded, or he doesn't even have the game, and he just watches the playthrough.
That okay? Well, because I know people who like that where it's like they would rather like watch the playthroughs rather than play it themselves. Like for me, like sometimes like I'm watching playthroughs to like, I'm having a hard time with this game. Let me see like what other people are doing, and not necessarily like solving the puzzles, but like maybe it's like a game where like, oh man, like it's a platformer. It's like, how do I get past this part? And seeing someone else do it's like, okay, so that's what I have to do. But seeing it and doing it are two different things. Or like sometimes like seeing something like, oh wow, I've never seen this game before. Like now I want to play it. It makes me want to play it after seeing it. It's like, I didn't know this game existed. Let's get it. Let's try it out. But yeah, it's getting to the point like where even in our entertainment, like we would rather like I just want to watch someone else do it. Like I don't want to challenge. Yeah, it's like, and I'm like and people's like they say like gaming is like kind of dumbed down and all that. So it's like no, gaming is great. This is the greatest time for games where like I grew up in the NES era where it's
what do I do? Where do I go?
Yeah, there was no internet. You had to fucking figure that shit out.
You have to wait for what was that gaming magazine?
Yeah, Nintendo Power.
Yeah, Nintendo Power. That's right.
Yeah, and if it wasn't a Nintendo Power, you're fucked. You had to figure it out yourself. And we get the term NES hard. I mean, that's true. Like those games are hard. Now
challenged.
Nowadays, I mean, there's some of the games that we play are still hard. Like Dark Souls is one of those type of games where it's trial and error. There's games I play now or I'll go back sometimes to old games like, how the hell did I beat this game?
Yeah.
Like when I was younger. One of the games in particular, Battletoads.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know how I beat that game as a kid. I did. I know I did.
Luck.
I beat that game. But
I just button smashing. You just button smashing.
I go back now, it's like, this game is fucking ridiculous. Or, there's other games where like I still have yet to beat them. I still haven't beaten for one of the gaming show that we do, which is on a little bit of a hiatus, but the first episode we did, I was doing kind of like my first experience with gaming ever. And Double Dragon,
oh my gosh,
is a game that I have yet to beat. I have not beaten that game, and my goal in life, I'm gonna beat that goddamn game. It's such a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
I want to beat it so bad, but it's hard. But I want, it's the challenge of like not beating it yet, but like knowing it's possible. I know I can do it. It's just I gotta just sit down and do it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But like there's nowadays like when people don't want to like sit down and like kind of get through stuff, get through challenges. Doesn't matter if it's something as innocuous as gaming or just in something serious where it's their own life. They don't want to like, I don't want to read. I don't want to challenge myself. I don't want to like get better at something. Like I just want to like do the minimum, whatever it takes to kind of just float through life. And that's a sad fact.
Yeah. I hear this a lot, how failure is not the worst thing that can happen to a person, right? But like that's the thing is that like we've been taught that like perfection is the standard,
right?
And it's tragic, watching like for example watching kids play video games and like basically give up, right? I've been playing a game called Outlast.
I mean, I rage quit every once in a while, but I go back and like I curse at the games and like it's like the double birds like fuck this game, this is terrible.
Yeah.
But I go back and I still try to beat it.
I was playing Outlast and that game is scary AF, right? Like I'm like, holy crap! Like I've not been that scared. I can't play that game for like more than an hour before like I'm just like
because you love horror games
fried.
And you like I'm shocked.
I'm starting to see a pattern of like you enjoying horror.
Yeah,
I mean,
and Andy's seen my frustration.
But I see that's my thing, right? I don't like horror movies, right? Okay. But horror video games and horror escape rooms are like kind of like my jam. I don't know exactly why. I think it's more because I'm more in control.
Okay.
During horror, like when it's in movies, I'm not in control. So it's like, right? I can't yell at someone to be like, "Hey, you're going the wrong effing way."
It's like, Karen, don't go in there. He's right there with the knife.
Yeah. So like, but that's the thing, right? Like I'm playing Outlast and like I'm moving very carefully. Of course, I die a couple of times, but I was enjoying playing that game because like there's always that potential that somebody is going to come over and rip your head off, right? Mm-hmm. But that's what makes just life in general exciting, right? Is the prospect that like, hey, you might fail, right? But at the very least, with video games, it's that one area where if you fail, have another life.
I know, right? There's always another life.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like I remember I came to this realization, or I developed this saying about failure, and it's failure is bitter, but it teaches us to hate the taste and to never taste it again.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Yeah.
And that so like and I mean, not to give Last Jedi too many props, because I fucking hate that. I hate that movie. But even Yoda said, like, the greatest teacher failure is. Yeah, the greatest teacher failure is, and he's not wrong.
Yeah.
You try one way and you fail. It's like, so it's like, that's not going to work. So I have to then adjust. And so but I mean, I do prefer my saying.
It's not as cryptic as Yoda's.
It's like, question am I asking?
Yeah, exactly. Are you?
But yeah.
But I don't know. I feel like my life has been dictated just kind of by like this mentality of like it's okay, to lose. It's okay. Like, but nowadays, again, like, maybe I'm looking too much into this because this is partially my job, right? Just to look after kids and like kind of like observe them and like try to create messages of inspiration that like will like improve or better their lives. So maybe that's why this topic is so like heavy on my heart, which is like with everything that I do, right? Like whether that be board games or exercise or food or anything of these things, but like, it's always been the people that I look up to personally are the people that like, I feel like people are inspired by like other people who like go through these like hard knock kind of stories, but they themselves are just like, like it happened to you, right? Like they see the pedestal that someone has been raised to and like the path that they took to get there. But like you guys said, right, they're not willing to go through that themselves. And man, like it's a weak culture that we grow up that we're in these days, right? And again, like I don't feel that special, like I don't feel like I'm doing anything like out of the ordinary, stuff like that. But then like looking at people who are like, Kevin, like you're such like an interesting person and you have so many interests. Why are you like this? I'm like, because there's things like there's so much to do.
Yeah, I actually do things.
Yeah, like and like if I botch a cooking experiment, I just give it to my cat. Like if I fail in escape room, I can come back. If I fall off the rock climbing wall, I'm back up. If I fail a lift, I'm back in 5 days.
Right. To quote Alfred from Batman Begins, it's like, why do we fall?
Yeah.
So we learn to pick ourselves up.
Yeah, in that exact accent.
Well, there's an adage, of like, failure's not an option. Well, and there's a guy that I listen to. He's like, well, that's ridiculous.
That's dumb.
Yeah, that's dumb. Yeah, failure is an option sometimes.
Failure is always an option.
And failure sometimes makes you smarter, better, stronger. Yeah. And I see a lot of times what, and this is just, out of my, religious beliefs, is failure sometimes it's an opportunity for things to change and get better. Well, it sucks at the moment. Like, no one wants to fail. I mean, obviously. And I think what makes it, for the young kids, the new generation that you and I teach, is that, they don't want to fail. And so it's like, well, I'm just going to set the bar so low, there's no possible way for me to fail. It doesn't matter, like, if it's something, like innocuous as video games, or if it's, just in like academically or whatever. It's like, well, if I set the bar this low, I'm always going to succeed. And they feel better about themselves instead. And you can do that. I mean, there's a lot of people that do that in their life, but you're never really going to get better. You're always going to kind of like, and I think that's where like I'm not trying to knock people who say, they're depressed, all that stuff. It's like, because I think this is a factor. One of the numerous factors when it comes to this. But when you set the bar so low, and I was like, yeah, I succeeded. It's like,
Is that it?
yeah, it's like, but then it's like when they look back, it's like, oh man, I didn't really succeed in anything. I didn't really do anything different. I didn't challenge myself, and I think that plays a part in it. It's like, I'm kind of worthless, and it's like when you take that retrospective back, it's like in the moment, it's like, oh great, like yeah, I succeeded, like I got that, well, not in Asian culture, but it's like, yeah, I got that C, like woo, yeah, it's like,
That's the Asian F.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The C in my house is like,
Yeah.
oh God, don't come back in. Don't come
It's
inside,
like,
dude.
you want to
It's like,
die?
yeah, it's like, you got to see, no food for you tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But but that's kind of like they're looking for that C standard, and that's fine. Like if you're really happy with that, great, fine. But I think a lot of people look back and it's like, I didn't accomplish a goddamn thing, and they become depressed. It's like, I'm worthless, and that's why I'm always challenging the students that I'm dealing with, the young kids I'm dealing with. It's like figure out why you believe the things you do, challenge yourself. It's fine, like you're gonna skin your knee, you're gonna get punched in the face, you're gonna feel crappy, that's gonna happen, but these are opportunities for you to grow and get better, and so that you better yourself better, but you're better equipped to face those challenges in the future. Because like, oh, I've been in this situation. I failed before. I know how to. It's kind of one of in racing too. It's like sometimes you have to lose to learn how to win. And by pushing the limits, knowing where your limits are and where the limits of life is, you will find a way to win.
Yeah.
And that's but there's so few people willing to go that route nowadays.
Yeah. I think that's just sounds kind of like a life motto for me, just like, because again, I work with kids, but like I wonder a lot for me, like, what is my purpose in life? And I think a lot of that is linked to for my own religious beliefs, believing that we're made for excellence. Right? We don't have to excel to be loved.
Right.
We don't have to excel to be accepted. But like knowing that you are already accepted and loved, what does that give you the strength to do?
Right.
There's a lot of people out there that, they want to excel because like they believe that is the way to being accepted and loved and like incorporated into a culture. But like, what if, people grew up with that mentality of like, hey, like I have friends, I have teachers, I have parents, and like obviously there are people at fault here, right? We do grow up in a generation where like, especially with Asian parents, like constantly like pushing your kid, hey, like you need to do better. And I don't doubt that a lot of these Asian parents do love their kids,
right?
But at the same time, what is the message that they're getting drilled with? You have to succeed, or else we're not going to love you.
Right.
That's kind of like what they're hearing.
Yeah, and that's that.
Right.
That's that false. That's that fallacy, and like where it's like where you have to succeed in order to earn that love.
Right.
But I think a good question to ask your students is like, what would you do if you couldn't fail?
Yeah.
Just simply ask, like, what would you do if you couldn't fail? Like everything that you tried, you knew you were gonna say, what would it be?
Yeah, and that's it's because like when that is your anchor, right? Like when you know that like you're already like, hey, like it's okay if I fail. Right. That's what really pushes people to excellence, because it's like, hey, like I'm going to try this, and this. And like, if I fail, I fail. I learn from it. I grow from it. It makes me stronger. If I succeed, that's one step closer to whatever goal that I have set in mind. Right. And I just believe that that's like the case with everything. Right. But I like seeing my life like that. Right. And just trying to be the best, like this is not like a pride thing for me. It's just, like, I believe that this is what we're built for. Trying to be like the best at whatever I do, because like, hey, like I want to give people hope that they're like taking one step forward toward the goal and like, you know, failing and then laughing about my failures and sharing like, hey, you know, like you remember that one time when blank happened, you know, like God, like, you know, serving burnt cookies, like falling off the wall and spraining my ankle, you know, like all this jazz that happens, right? Like, and teaching people through my life, right? Like, hey, like let's strive for the standard, but let's remember that we have anchors, whether that be your religion, your faith, whether that be your friends, whether that be your family, somewhere that validates your existence and who you are. If you have that, that should be like the strength that you have to keep moving forward. You know? It's, I don't know, like just again, like with this day and age, just being so disconnected from one another and not really believing those truths about yourself. I'm constantly fighting that mentality first, but like again, like I want my life to be hope for people, right? Like with the joys and the failures, just in general. And I'm not just talking about like my hobbies, right? But just like my vocation, my relationships with my friends and my families, my friends and my family.
How many families do you have?
I know, right? Are you a polygamist?
But yeah, like just using, like I think I'm starting to figure out that's just kind of like my purpose, right? Like as long as I am paid just to like speak to kids and be like an inspirational speaker for them and to preach the gospel and do all these, like, yeah, like those are all important aspects of my life. But especially with my life, I want to be able to share with people like, hey, this is what life looks like when you're anchored. This is what life looks like when failure is not the worst thing that can happen to you, right? And so, like, you know, everything that we've talked about today, like it relates to that in a sense, and like I think that's just kind of like the foundation for my own life. So yeah.
Yeah, well, it's I mean, it's tough for everyone. Like, you know, even like our generation, or you know, the next generation that we're trying to help, you know, train and kind of make them better. It's tough, and yeah, I do whatever I can to help toughen them up. And it's like, hey, you know, it's okay to, you know, while I'm toughening them up, yet at the same time I'm trying to encourage them. Not an easy thing to do. But yeah, I'm really thankful you came on. This is, you know, kind of just talking about like your interest in it. You say you're an awkward dude, but, like, you're one of the most relational people that I know.
I learned.
Yeah,
the best.
Like you said, and yeah, our friendship hasn't been that long, but it feels like, you know, it's a deep friendship. And yeah, I learned a lot just from, you know, hearing your experiences, and I think we think very similarly as far as like, yeah, meals are a time to, like, you know, come together, you know, share stories, share our, you know, what's going on in our life, solving puzzles in a extreme circumstance, you know, kind of figuring out who we really are, or, you know, whatever. And, you know, I feel the same way with Andy. Like, we've been doing this podcast for almost 2 years now, and you know, we've had our differences, but we've worked through stuff. We've kind of started developing, like, that's not working, let's try something different, or, you know, we're always trying to add something new. And I'm trying to make Andy's life as easy as possible, because, you know, he is,
and he's failing in that.
I'm failing.
Failure is not the worst thing that can happen.
Yeah, exactly. But no, seriously, thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing about your stuff. We'll have you on again. Maybe we'll talk more theology next time.
Yeah.
We didn't get to that today, but that's okay.
Or board games.
Or board games.
Yeah, well, whatever.
Yeah, because there's a lot to get to in board games. Like, I
still need to crack open the pandemic.
I love challenging board games. But see, there's so
nerds.
No,
proud nerds.
There are so few people that, like, are willing to get into those challenging board games, because sometimes you need more than 2 people, unfortunately. Yeah. And maybe we should do a board game podcast. I think that would be a good one.
We need to do Twilight Struggle. I think that's a 2-person game that's like up there as one of the best. But we'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get to that. That'll be another time.
Yeah.
But seriously, thanks for coming on. Hey, for you guys out there, if you're kind of like struggling with, like kind of challenging yourself, or like, you don't feel like you're succeeding in life or whatever, like, maybe consider like what we're talking about. It's like, it's okay to challenge yourself. It's okay to fail. Failure is an option. It's okay. But because failure is an opportunity to grow and get better.
Right.
Don't fear that.
I reiterate, but failure is bitter, but it teaches us to hate the taste and to never taste it again.
Exactly. Be bold. Don't have fear. It's fine.
Yeah, don't be a pussy.
Yeah, exactly.
Well put.
Yeah. But anyways, that is the episode. Thank you guys for watching. Hopefully, you'll leave some comments, hate mail, whatever you want to leave us. That's fine. We like it all. Because if you're watching the whole thing and then leaving us hate comments, you watched the whole thing.
And we're doing something right.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, if any comments, based on what we talked about, that you're like, oh, you missed that, like, I wish you had talked about that, leave that comment. That'd be great. If you want to, is there anywhere people can reach you, Kevin? Like, if you want to, I know you're like, you hate small talk.
My number?
No, not your number.
Like
do you have social media stuff?
I don't really use social media. I don't know. Yeah.
Okay,
Sorry.
well, Kevin,
You can talk to these guys and they can relay it to me.
Kevin-
Harass us, and then we'll pass on the harassing to Kevin.
Yeah, I'll text him. I'll let him know.
Yeah.
Anyways, if you want to reach
Monkey Scrotum 862 said that you're an idiot.
Oh, thank you.
Glad to be addressed by someone who's called a scrotum.
Yeah. But if you want to reach our podcast, we have a couple of social media platforms. Twitter is @podcastcoj. Instagram is Circle of Jerks Podcast. We have a whole library of great content from this show. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff that we got going on. And if you're looking for something to do on a Tuesday night, 8 o'clock-ish, we do a live stream called Nocturnal Transmissions. We talk movies. We talk pretty much anything, honestly. Like something that's going on in the news, something innocuous. Like, I mean, hell, we've talked about beer, for like 2 hours almost.
About beer, fueled by beer.
Exactly. I like beer. Still like beer. Beer's great.
Still gonna drink beer?
So we do that, and I have a gaming show called Up by Up Down. It's on a little bit of a hiatus, but there's a lot. I have some stuff in the works. I'm almost done with it.
Yeah, Robert has plans.
I'm hoping by the end of the year we'll have something. I'll have something set up, so that be on the lookout. But there are a library of some Let's Plays that I've done. Speaking of hard games, let me tell you. But yeah, that's the episode. Thank you guys for coming on. We hope to see you again for the next episode. Until then, see you next time.
Deuces. Yeah, that'll do it.